Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Feud podcast. I am Stone Darrow, joined along by Mason Reed
Hey guys, how we doing?
and Paul Cotton.
What's up, everybody?
Today is our third episode that we're shooting, and we're going to be discussing the NFC East, who consists of the Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Football Team, and New York Giants. But before we jump into the NFC East, I want to shout out our social medias. If you're listening to this on YouTube, it is under the same name on Spotify as well, and vice versa. Be sure to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitters as well, all the Fantasy Few. Paul, you want to discuss the NFC East a little bit?
Yeah, the NFC East contains the ever-revolving door of divisional winners. We'll start with the defending champion Washington Football Team. They handed the reins over to journeyman Ryan Fitzmagic this offseason. We got some returning stars from the Dallas Cowboys that don't just look to return healthy, but also return to the top of the division for the first time since 2018. The New York Football Giants and the rival Philadelphia Eagles both hopped on the coaching carousel this offseason. They brought in first-time head coaches Joe Judge and Nick Sirianni with hopes to try to help climb out of the cellar of one of the worst divisions in the NFL, in my opinion.
Before we jump into any recent news, Mason, can I get a comment on what you were trying to do there with your hands when Paul was talking about Fitzmagic?
The beard, man. The beard, baby. Come on now.
I know, it's just a poor choice of hand motion, I guess. I couldn't really tell what you were going for there.
I don't know what to do with my hands. All right, let's kick this off. So, recent news with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, I think it was their official Twitter page, decided that they wanted to tweet out Dak Prescott is going to get an MRI. They are not concerned. But they are just getting an MRI just to be safe on his shoulder. It's kind of weird that they decided to just tweak that out randomly. Other than that, his ankle seems to be doing fine. But Dak was throwing in practice on Tuesday, August 10th. The fellow Cowboy coming off of off-season ankle surgery of his own, Amari Cooper, is off the PUP. Slated to be starting week 1 against Tampa, so that's kind of important going into the draft, thinking about where you're going to draft Amari Cooper. Hopefully he's getting solid camp time. And still the good old Michael Gallup is embracing a new role with reps from the slot position. Hopefully that vamps him up a little bit. So kind of going off some player changes over the offseason and coaching changes. They brought over Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, and kind of in my wheelhouse, they brought in a new strength coach. Who knows how that'll do? Possibly not going well with what I fear with Dak's shoulder injury. Something kind of interesting to talk about. Most of their picks this year in the draft were defense. 8 out of 11 were defense. So they're really looking up to bolster that defense up. Their offense seems to be ready to go. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to switch it over to you, Stone.
Yeah, I just want to point out first, if they added all these guys on defense, and obviously that's, the right call. Their defense was what was lacking last year. Their offense was just hurt. But, I think adding Dan Quinn as your defensive coordinator might not have been the greatest hire. Last I checked, he coached Atlanta the last few years, and I don't think their defense was very good there, if I remember right.
I remember that if I'm playing fantasy, I'm starting covers playing against Atlanta, whether it's a wide receiver or a quarterback, because they're going to get some fantasy points. We'll see how it goes.
For sure.
All right, but
It's almost a similar situation to Chuck Pagano coming in as a former head coach. He kind of brings that ability to help with the offense, or I guess not just the offense, but help manage the team in general. But we've seen how that went in Chicago last year. The past two seasons under Chuck Pagano, it didn't work out very well. That defense regressed a lot. So I also feel like that kind of speaks to exactly what you're talking about, Mason.
All right, well, let's just hop right into our bust guarantees and sleepers. We're going to start with our busts today for the Dallas Cowboys, and I want to start off with Paul, actually, and I want you to explain why Michael Gallup is your guy.
So, he's had kind of high volume targets with low reception numbers, in my opinion. It's averaged about 15 and a half yards per reception. But that can drop with the multiple deep threats that they have on the roster between Amari Cooper, if he can stay healthy, as well as CeeDee Lamb on the outside. He kind of reverts, like Mason talked about. He reverts to the slot now. That could help him because he's going to be in a different role than what he normally is on the outside. But again, that 15 and a half yard average, it kind of speaks volumes that he's that big play potential. That might not be the case where he's running slants or ins and outs coming out of the slot now, and he's not going to be really downfield as much. But then you also have to consider the checkdowns from Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. I mean, that can definitely eat into a guy like Michael Gallup's targets overall. But again, it's one of those things where we've seen it last year with Dak Prescott. He came out throwing the ball a ton. I think he was averaging close to 400 yards a game just through the first three. So, I mean, there's targets to go around. It's just we're going to have to see who's the one that ends up eating up the most.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, I'd say my potential bust, I love the guy, but I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb because this talent that the Cowboys has is for real on the offensive end. I mean, what they had Blake Jarwin get hurt immediately off the rip last year, and I mean, obviously, they still have Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper that are going to be there. Zeke was somewhat involved in the pass game last year, but Tony Pollard could get a little bit of involvement, and Dalton Schultz is still there. So, I mean, they just have so much talent there, and I just don't know if I can see an average draft position of 40 being where he should go. I mean, obviously, I could be eating my words right now. He could very well be an absolute steal and be better than Amari Cooper. I personally think he is better than Amari Cooper, but it's just too early to tell with the Cowboys in their receiving game. It's kind of a big question mark there.
I like that take. I'm going to have to kind of jump in here. I think CeeDee Lamb is actually going to be fine. I believe last year he had an insane rookie season with no quarterback. CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, could come out as the top dog on that offense, and with Dak's high volume capabilities, I think CeeDee Lamb might be solid. But like Stone said, it's kind of early to tell. So that's just taking two different angles at it.
Yeah, I don't mean to interject on that a little bit, but here's the numbers that you're talking about. His receptions, he had 74 for 935 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's 12.6 yards a catch, which isn't terrible. He played all 16 games as a rookie, and he brought 140 fantasy points to the table. So
he also had 111 targets.
Those are all numbers as a rookie.
Yeah, 111 targets. That's obviously very great value. He's obviously going to be catching a lot of those because he's a very talented receiver. So, I don't know. It's just, I want to say draft him. Like, I want to say it's a safe spot, but it's just I see 40, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just kind of iffy on it, I guess. But to move on from that, Mason, you want to talk about your even probably more controversial take of a bust here?
Very controversial. Even more controversial after Hard Knocks has come out and Zeke is looking slim and he's moving fast, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know how I think about this. Now he's got my mind all feeling weird. But my bust is Zeke. And again, this doesn't really, like I've said in the previous podcast, it's not like he's going to be terrible. He's still going as pick number 7, I think, in the average. But let's talk about some numbers. So snap percentage from 2019 to 2020 went 83% to 69%. This could be due to Dak being hurt, and maybe they wanted to preserve him a little bit, just keep him on the field, preserve his body, just because we know how much of a beat running backs can take and their short lifespan in the NFL. We all know how important snap percentages. If you're on the field and you're somebody like Zeke and your snap percentage is super high, you're comfortable because you know he's going to get touches. You know he's going to get the opportunity to make the play. So when it dips, that's a little scary. But they like Pollard. He had a 32 in 2020. Mike McCarthy wasn't known for giving his running backs a huge share like Zeke used to in the past. And now Zeke is 26 years old. This is the start of the typical decline in running backs. Having to pick Zeke and pick 7, I personally prefer to take Devonta Adams in his final dance with Aaron Rodgers.
Now, yeah,
That's all I have to say on that.
Completely agree with that, actually, because, I mean, Devonta Adams, we talked about this in the first podcast, how if I'm sitting at 8, I want Devonta Adams. He's 30 points a week. But Ezekiel Elliott is not someone to sleep on. He's actually my guarantee. I think 7 to 8 could be a little early just because of Tony Pollard and his ability to take some touches from him. But this doesn't change the fact that Dak Prescott's going to be back this year, and most of his offensive line's going to be back this year. I mean, that entire offense last year was absolutely decimated, and now it's all coming back together. And I mean, even in a quote unquote terrible year for Ezekiel Elliott, he still managed to get out there and get a total of 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I mean, like, you're talking about the worst year of Zeke's career still being an elite year for any other running back in the NFL. I don't think you should be scared of Zeke, but I will say maybe his ADP is a little high. Maybe he should be early second round.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
So with keeping all that in mind, I'd like to actually jump into my guarantee because it's kind of the exact opposite. My guarantee is Tony Pollard, his backup. He showed that he can be a lead back when in the absence of Zeke when he went down last year, when he wasn't playing. When he was having his fumbling issues, and he averaged 4.8 yards a carry. He had 455 yards in his first 2 seasons with limited touches, 187 combined touches. I mean, he's also effective in the checkdowns and the receptions. He had 43 of 60, so he's got sure hands out of the backfield. And I think his ADP right now where he's going is the beginning of the 11th round. Me, that's an absolute steal for somebody that you'd be able to play knowing he's going to get the time and the snaps, even with somebody like Zeke as the starting running back. And it's just going to prove that you can put him in a flex depending on the matchup. And I think he's an absolute steal in the 11th round.
I know Mason's a big fan of Tony Pollard also. And to be fair, I think he could be a huge sleeper this year in fantasy football. But I still think it's Zeke's load to lose, honestly. Mason, you want to talk about?
Definitely is.
Mason, you want to talk about your guarantee?
Yeah. What I'm not a fan of is constant siren in Chicago. Drives me nuts. So this is a pretty big deal. My guarantee is Dak Prescott, but I'm slightly concerned right now, and that's not because of his ankle. Let's talk about the ankle first. Get that out of the way. Basically, the data is on Dak Prescott's side with his injury. They've looked at a bunch of studies, and basically 93% of most people that had his injury were able to compete within 6 to 12 months of surgery. The numbers are on his side. But enough of that. Yeah, we're not worried about the ankle. Worried about right now is possibly the shoulder. Okay, it comes out as a minor shoulder strain. They sit him out of practice just because, hey, let's be safe. Yeah, that's smart. Now my cat won't stop meowing. So they sit him out of practice, and now they're getting an MRI just to be safe. What's going on here is it is a potential lat problem, lat delt complex. So we have the lat muscles, we have the delt muscles, the shoulder muscles, and then we have the trap muscles. And there's something going on with an imbalance. Basically, with the injury he has, we see it in a lot of baseball athletes. It's overuse. It's chronic. And what concerns is if it's what I think it is with the baseball injury, the fact that it's chronic, it's going to take longer to fix. So something's going on with the PT and the strength conditioning staff. They didn't do a good job of rehabbing him, his full total body this year. So hopefully it's minor. Hopefully it's nothing to be worried about like they're talking. But I am slightly concerned right now. We'll have some news after the MRI information is actually, and then we'll kind of be able to tell you where to go from there.
The easiest way to think of it is if Dak Prescott is hurt, then concern. If he is not hurt, then no concern. He's obviously an elite quarterback. So,
just like Stone said, I didn't think I.
Hey, you're gonna have to.
I was just gonna say,
quiet down, bro. They are being really loud right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we move on to the Philadelphia Eagles, I want to talk about my biggest sleeper. You guys probably would say Tony Pollard would be your biggest sleeper, but I want to take a different approach to it and say Blake Jarwin's my biggest sleeper for this team, and probably my biggest sleeper in the entire NFC East. I mean, he was primed to be the number one tight end for the Cowboys last year before he, tore his ACL on the first catch he had of the season. He was pretty highly sought after and talked about, and a lot of people thought he was going to be a big deal. I think this year he can come back and make that same impact everyone's kind of forgetting about. I mean, Dalton Schultz came in and made good impact. But enough of that. Let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Mason, do you want to talk about the recent news for them?
Yeah, so we all know Jalen Hurts is now the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. When camp started, he came out hot. He was looking good, but since he can't maintain this team going through training camp, there was some talk possibly about Deshaun Watson landing in Philly. Probably won't happen. Here's something cool. I got a little insider. Philadelphia Eagles got a good buddy that's a big Philly Eagles fan. He told me that Nick Sirianni walked into training camp the other day wearing a Run Booby Run shirt, and that reference is Booby Miles reference. Paul, what movie is that from? Totally blanking on that.
From
Booby Miles.
Oh yeah, that's from Friday Night Lights, and
that's
it's
it.
a fantastic movie.
It. Exactly. So that's where that reference is. Booby Miles. I believe we all better watch out for Miles Sanders, but more on that in a little. Yeah, I brought up Nick Sirianni. He's the head coach.
It depends on what Booby Miles they're going to get. Are they going to get the healthy one, or are they going to get the one with the busted up knee?
We don't know. Hopefully it's the healthy one. But no, talking about coaching changes, Nick Sirianni came in from the Colts. He likes to run the ball. In 2 years in a row, he was ranked number 4, or the offense was ranked number 4 for rushing attempts. Other coaching changes, they brought in John Gannon as the defense coordinator for the. Not really sure what that brings along, but let's go ahead. We all know Devonta Smith got brought on, first round pick. Interesting. They draft 2 wide receivers with their number 1 2 years. They brought in Kerryon Johnson, back up Miles Sanders, released Deshaun Jackson, went to the Rams. Let's go Deshaun. They picked up Steven Nelson to help on that defense. They needed a corner big time. That's kind of some of the biggest news. Stone, do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, let's just jump straight into the bus.
Can I throw one player in there?
Yeah, go ahead.
One player in there real quick. Another guy that they re-signed, and I got to give him love, is Jordan Howard. Hated to see him walk out of Chicago. Happy with David Montgomery now, but I got to give that man some love. His first 3 years in the league, he balled out. He was only behind Zeke Elliott in rushing, so just got to throw him in.
Paul's a clear homer. I'm also a homer, but I'm not that much of a homer. I wasn't going to bring that up at all. Don't worry, guys. Let's talk about the bust. Mason, I want to hear your bust.
All right. Let's talk about this. I wasn't a big fan of them drafting Devonta Smith, so I already had my biases a bit. But he's already got some minor knee injuries. It's keeping him from getting these valuable training camp reps. Wide receivers typically have a hard time in their rookie year. There's a lot to go over. The route trees are different. Everything's different compared to college. Just a hard transition. They've got so many other receivers on the squad that have experience. I'm slightly concerned he's just not going to be as productive. I know he played with Jalen Hurts in college. They have some kind of chemistry, so I'm sure that's going to favor for Devonta Smith. But I think Devonta Smith's development is going to slow down a little bit.
All right. Well, I kind of want to talk about, my sleeper now, or not sleeper, bust, sorry. Jalen Reagor, the other receiver that's there that's young. I think Paul could agree with me here. He's not, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of him. Paul, do you think, I don't know.
So going into what Mason said, a lot of first-year receivers don't have very good production. Granted, he had to deal with having Carson Wentz for a little bit, his broken, unstable quarterback position. He ended up getting Jalen Hurts towards the end of the year, which we know he's kind of more of a running dual-threat quarterback, so not always looking for the pass first. But in his rookie season, he played 11 games out of 16. Very, very low production. Had 31 catches on 54 targets. With a team that has a lot of question marks at receivers, it doesn't really make sense why he only had 54 targets in the first place. But he didn't put up very big numbers. He had 396 yards and 1 touchdown. That is pretty terrible for a rookie receiver, even having the opportunity as much as he did in that offense.
I mean, had he played the full season, his stats still would have not been good. I mean, his yardage would have been a high 400 yards. So it's it's not very impressive to me. But I don't really want to give Jalen Reagor any spotlight here. I think he's an obvious bust candidate this year. I want to give Devonta Smith the spotlight because I absolutely love this guy, and I hate that Mason has him as his bust. He's my guarantee. I know he has that MCL sprain, but that doesn't really bother me too much. I mean, he's literally maybe the greatest college receiver to ever play the game. He was so dominant this last year. He was the Heisman winner. I mean, he's fast, runs good routes. He has great hands. He's a little small. I don't really care. There's small receivers that are good in the NFL. His average draft position is 97, and that's like one round before Jalen Reagor. And I just don't even understand how that's possible. Either he's ranked too low, or Jalen Reagor is ranked too high. There's no in between there, in my opinion. But I don't know. Devonta
I'm going to say Reagor's way too high.
Yeah, I agree there. And I think Smith could be in the right area, but I just think that he's going to be better than an average draft position of around 100. I think he's going to be better than that personally. I love that guy watching him. I'm not an Alabama fan by any means. I'm a Kentucky fan, but I still watch Alabama games and just awe in how good Devonta Smith was. I don't know.
Hey, Stone, do you know what you guys have in common?
What's that?
You're both 145 pounds. Just kidding.
Hey, man, I don't care how small the guy is. You know how good he is? Production matters more. And at the end of the day, he's going to produce. He is going to produce, I guarantee you. Mason, you talk about your guarantee then. I won't trash on that at all because he is pretty good, but
I don't think this guy is I like this, but I don't think this guy is getting enough hype this year. Possibly because of his quiet past couple years. It's Miles Sanders. He's super focused this year. In the interviews, you can just tell he's kind of just talking about how he's ready to play. I've just been watching his. He just seems ultra focused. And how I mentioned earlier, Nick Sirianni loves the run game. I think they're going to use the heck out of Miles Sanders. I'm not worried about Kerryon either. He couldn't do anything with the Lions. I think he's going to just be a nice little supplement when he needs a little break here and there. Basically, from what I see, Miles Sanders floating around the 3rd to 4th draft position. If you draft a wide receiver with your first pick, then you're going to be possibly hurting for a running back. And I think Miles Sanders has the potential to be a top 12 running back, given the right usage. So if you can snag him in the 3rd or 4th round, I think you're winning big time there.
Yeah, the ADP of
see.
4th round, 2nd pick, I believe, and that's just criminally low for someone like Miles Sanders, who's a very good running back. I think that's like, I talked about my draft strategies in the first podcast that we did, and I talked about how I like to nab 3rd, 4th round running backs. This is the one this year that's probably going to be that guy sitting there that produces heavily for you. I agree with that completely. Paul, let's talk about your guarantee.
So my guarantee is Jalen Hurts, and it's kind of a similar reason that what Mason is talking about and what he talked about at the beginning with the addition of head coach Nick Sirianni. He loves to run the ball, and Jalen Hurts has that ability to kind of be like a smaller Cam Newton, a younger Cam Newton, where he gets those designed runs. He has that escapability, and Nick Sirianni had Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett. So those are 2 big quarterbacks that he'd love to do play action with and RPOs. You could still see it even when Jacoby Brissett played backup role to the other quarterbacks in Indianapolis. They brought him in for those goal line situations, the short yardage, because they know he can do it. And he's shown the ability, even when Nick Sirianni had Phillip Rivers last year. He kind of relied a little bit more on the passing game, even with the rookie emergence of Jonathan Taylor. But he's shown the willingness to kind of build around the strengths of his quarterbacks. And like I said, the strength of Jalen Hurts is his ability to throw on the run, to get out of the pocket and evade the pressure. And I think he's going to excel. Showed it a little bit towards the end of the year last year in the games that he started. But if his coach puts all the faith in him, unlike Doug Peterson, I feel like the sky's kind of the limit for that kid.
Yeah, I'm very back and forth between Jalen Hurts. One side, I really love the leadership that he's been showing recently. He's been getting a lot of good critique from his teammates about leadership and how he's staying after practice with them and huddling them together and talking to them and stuff. So I'm really liking that, but I'm just kind of in between. He could either boom or he could either bust, in my opinion. So I don't really have. I don't think I'm going to draft him in any leagues this year, but I can understand why you would draft him in leagues.
If he slides,
I mean, he's going around the 805 mark, so right around the middle of the 8th round. That might be a little early for him. Again, I feel like he can just kind of take that next step, being in a sophomore season now, even being under a new offense. That's just kind of where I stand on it. I feel like he can take off and excel this year.
That's completely understandable. Before we move on to the Washington football team, now that we've gone over our busts and guarantees, do you guys have any sleepers that you'd want to talk about by chance?
A few in mind. The first one, I want to talk about Travis Fulgham. He's being slept on. I think he's still kind of down on the depth chart. I think Greg Ward still might be ahead of him. Not sure why that is. But with Devonta Smith being out, he was out during training camp a certain amount of time. I think Travis Fulgham has proved himself. I think if he still gets in on that offense, gets quality reps, Jalen Hurts could have a nice little. Zack Ertz is the next guy I want to talk about. Now, this is interesting because Zack Ertz had a terrible year last year. He had plenty of chances to catch the ball. He had a bit of a problem last year. I don't know if he was hurt or not. I expected him to be gone by now. I thought he was going to get cut. I thought he was going to get traded, maybe sent over to the Colts with Carson Wentz. Who knows? But he's not. So this tells me he might have a role this year. Everyone's down on the guy. This is his first down year since 2014. I went back and looked at his stats. He's been a solid guy. Don't count out Zack Ertz just yet. He's kind of hit or miss with the TDs, the touchdowns, but the targets and yards, receptions, always there. He could be a reliable security blanket for Jalen Hurts going into his first year as a full-time starter. Let's just look to see how he plays out the rest of training camp, preseason. Keep your eye on him, guys.
I've always been a big fan of Zack Ertz. Had him in a few fantasy leagues back in the day, and the production's obviously always been there except last year. The only thing I have to say against that is Dallas Goedert is still alive and breathing. He will definitely be They could take a 50-50 split, honestly, in terms of tight end catches. Like, it's just kind of hard to start either of them. They're both really talented. It's a hit or miss with those guys. Let's move on to the Washington football team.
So one of the last things I actually heard.
Sorry, never mind. Nah, you can go ahead. You have one more sleeper.
We're good. I was just gonna say, kind of speaking to that Dallas Goedert stat, Stone. He actually, from what I read, failed the latest physical that they had. So I don't know if he's actually playing right now. I don't know if he's injured. I don't know what the case was. I don't know if he came into camp overweight. Just something was bothering him. But I did read that he failed his first physical this summer with them. So I'm not sure really where that stands. Mason might be onto something with your reemergence of Zack Ertz.
Zack Ertz, baby. Pay attention.
I've been saying since last year, I think Zack Ertz is going to come back and be fine this year. Not necessarily like a top dog again, but like he'll definitely go in and get his catches and get his yards, and he could be a viable start every week. Now let's move on.
I think he was hurt all year.
Let's move on to the Washington football team. Mason, let's hear some recent news about the football team.
Yeah, I'm just going to go over some basic stuff. Landon Collins. He's back. He's ready to bolster this already sneaky defense. One thing that's bothering me right now on offense, Curtis Samuel, he's facing a groin injury. He's already starting on PUP, physically unable to persist. There's one good point to this. He has already been in Rivera's system. Shouldn't have a hard time catching up, but you just don't like seeing a receiver ups in training. The Washington football team's COVID vaccinations reached 84% after Rivera warns the team about 2 more players testing positive. Talking about their defense again, Montez Sweat and Chase Young looking to pass rushing sack record, 39, held by the Vikings, Keith Millard and Matt Dolman, 18 and 20, 1989. So that's something cool to think about. Not really relevant to your fantasy football team unless you're starting the Washington team's defense, or you have IDPs, which we talked about in the first podcast, which is individual defensive player. But yeah, let's go ahead. Stone, I want you to talk about some potential sleepers this year on the Washington football.
Well, I mean, so I guess I'll talk about my favorite sleeper. Would probably be, I don't know if you can classify him as a sleeper, but it'd be Logan Thomas. I picked him up pretty early in the year last year. Once he started getting a few catches in the games, I kind of liked the skill set I saw in him, and by the end of the year he was getting like 8-9 targets a game and getting touchdowns and scoring 20 points a game in fantasy by the end of the year. I really liked the guy. I think he. I know with Curtis Samuel being there, it could hurt, but then again, he's on the PUP right now, so who knows with him. Logan Thomas, I think he's kind of a for sure guy with Fitzmagic there at quarterback. But let's go on to some busts. Mason, do you want to talk about your bust by chance? After I talked about my sleeper?
I'll go right into it. So I like Logan Thomas. But I think he benefited heavily from 2 horrible quarterbacks. No offense, Alex Smith. I know you just got over that huge ankle thing. He went through some stuff, all right?
Ankle thing? Did you say ankle
but
thing?
But now...
Ankle thing. I'm pretty sure it was entire leg thing.
Whatever, Yeah, it snapped in half. It was pretty crazy to watch.
That definitely would have been a broken leg that resulted in him now having half a calf. So... We'll just keep that in mind.
Ankle thing.
Hey, a story on the road to come back was pretty. But anyways, so now he's playing with a quarterback that can utilize every weapon on his offense. We're talking the wide receivers, Scary Terry, Curtis Samuel, the running backs, Antonio Gibson. We're talking J.D. McKissick. Logan Thomas is gonna see production. I just don't know if he's gonna kind of eat what he did last year, and that's my biggest thing with.
Paul, who's
let's
your
go ahead.
bust?
I'm gonna jump in with Mason on this one because it's Logan Thomas for me. I see more targets going around, like Mason said. You have Scary Terry in his 3rd year, Terry McLaurin. He's proven that he can be the go-to guy over there. have Curtis Samuel. Yeah, he's out at the moment, but they brought in the dynamic rookie Diami Brown from North Carolina. Steven Sims showed a little bit of promise last season. I mean, these are all targets that are going to be taken away from Logan Thomas potentially. He put up good numbers last year, but like Mason said, it was in an offense where the quarterback position was shaky. They think they have that figured out now with Ryan Fitzmagic, and we all know that man loves to throw the deep ball. Seen it last year down in Miami. He was looking for it quite often. I mean, he's going to have to get the check downs to get Antonio Gibson going in the running game, but I just don't see the full benefits of having Logan Thomas on my roster at the moment.
I mean, at average draft position of 94, I mean, that's a steal of a tight end in my eyes. Someone who had 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, I believe, last year. I think picking him that late is just kind of a steal to me. I think he'll be fine. Sure, Fitzmagic might change things slightly because, like you said, he's a deep ball guy, but I still think Logan Thomas is that security blanket. He's only going to get better. I mean, he was a rookie last year. He's going into his second year. It's like I'm being kind of back and forth here because I was talking about CeeDee Lamb earlier, and he's going into his second year, but I'm saying he's a bust, and now I'm saying Logan Thomas is going into his second year, and he can't be a bust because he can only get better. But
that's okay. I like your take.
I want to talk about Curtis Samuel. He's my bust, and now that he's on PUP, this kind of seems obvious if he doesn't play for a certain amount of time. But even if he was to play a lot of the time, I think he's the guy that's kind of being overhyped a little bit, I would say. He had 97 targets last year, and I only expect that to drop. He moved to this team that has, like we said earlier, himself, Logan Thomas, Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, Scary Terry, even Adam Humphries, who's on the team now, who could steal targets from him. Everybody's not talking about him at all. So I just think all the target share is going to drop for him, and if he's hurt, I mean, it makes it even more obvious right now to me. But I personally think Curtis Samuel is kind of a bust, big bust. I don't like him this year.
We'll have to see with all the time he's sitting out.
Yeah, that is true. So enough with the bust. Let's talk about the guys that we think are going to perform well this year. Paul?
Yeah, so my guarantee is I feel like it's pretty simple for this offense. It's Terry McLaurin. He beat the sophomore slump, which is what we consider your second year in the NFL. You kind of hit the wall, per se, in your ability of producing and kind of just becoming a better player, and he completely shattered it. His receptions increased from 58 to 87. His targets went from 93 to 134, and he increased his yardage from 919 all the way up to 1,118 yards. He did drop a little bit in touchdowns from 7 to 4, but his average yards per reception was 14. And like I already spoke to, Ryan Fitzmagic, he's going to be in that position where he can find Terry McLaurin on deep balls. He can find him open due to his route running ability. I just see his numbers continuing to go up.
I don't think you can argue against Scary Terry. Honestly, that guy's an absolute monster, and he's only getting better. I think with the emergence of Fitzmagic, man, that guy's truly has the capability of being a top 10 receiver this year, without a doubt in my mind.
His physical abilities are sick. I love him so much.
Yep. But
I'm drafting him where I can this year.
But my guarantee is not Scary Terry. I mean, he would be, but there's a man named Antonio Gibson on this squad, and he is personally one of my favorite running backs in the NFL. He was a rookie last year and had over 1,000 total yards and 11 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry, and that's only in 14 games. Now, he had that turf toe injury from last year, but they're saying he doesn't have any pain from it anymore. And then to top it off, they've been saying that he's going to be more involved in the pass game. So, I mean, there's nothing to not like about this guy. I think he's going early second round right now, maybe late second round. I can't remember. I think he arguably is going to possibly finish as the RB1. I said it here first. He is a mini CMC, baby.
Ooh.
I didn't say that first, actually. Someone else said that. I can't remember who said that, but I agree with it completely.
Yeah. Being drafted by round of, that he had that in mind with. But yeah, I'm going off of Stone's number one guarantee, which is Antonio Gibson as the dude's money. Like Stone said, in 14 games, he produced all those numbers. He's going to have now an extra 3 games. Receptions are going to increase. That makes him super important in PPR. And when you can draft this guy in the second round, he's going to be a league winner this year. That's what we were talking about previously on a different podcast. We want to go out. We want to draft the guys that are going to win us a championship. Stone and I also had him on one of our teams last year. He came in clutch through the end of the year. He was balling out. I'm excited to see what he does this year in his new role as the full-time running back on this offense.
I just want to say, don't be scared if he's supposed to go later in the second round. If you have that first pick in the second round, do not be afraid to draft that guy. He will definitely be worth the pick. He is very, very good. Let's move on to the New York Giants now, the last team of the NFC East. Mason, would you like to give us some news about this team?
Yeah. Saquon is activated. He returns to practice. They're being iffy on when they said he's actually play. They keep saying he could play potentially week 1, but that means could, but probably shouldn't, just to be safe. Paul, I know you know a little more that kind of happened with a little bit of a scuffle. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so they had a little bit of a team brawl. It started when Evan Ingram took exception to what he thought was a late hit on their running back Corey Clement, and safety Logan Ryan. He didn't take too kindly to that, and he ended up leveling Evan Ingram. It all kind of came to a big pile up. Danny Dimes, the quarterback, Daniel Jones, got stuck underneath the pile. It was a big mess. Head coach Joe Judge immediately quit practice, yelled at everybody, kind of scolded them like they were children again. And since that point, 3 different Giants players have retired. Veteran offensive linemen Zach Fulton and Joe Looney, which that's unfortunate. And that kind of speaks to the protection that the quarterback as well as Saquon in the running game is going to get. And then a linebacker, Todd Davis, he also chose to retire. So it was kind of a crazy situation. That was about as much as I read on it, as much as I actually cared to read on it, because that's not something that's very acceptable to happen in the NFL. You get fights and scuffles all the time. Like it actually just happened in the joint practice between the Dallas Cowboys and the Rams. Aaron Donald and Connor Williams, your offensive tackle. They took exception to each other, playing until the whistle. Even though they're in practice, it got heated, and Aaron Donald grabbed him by the helmet, threw him down on the ground, and just kind of started a big old fight. So, I mean, it's something that happens occasionally. Most of the time you see it in, like I said, joint practices between other teams, not necessarily your own team. So
that's
absolutely kind of where it was.
Wild. That's absolutely wild. We were talking about how Evan Ingram was the one that retaliated here, and I know that Paul probably has a thing to say or two about him.
Yeah, so get on with it. Honestly don't even really think Evan Ingram should have been on the field. I do not like the kid at all. I had high hopes for him coming out of Ole Miss as a player, as a fantasy player. He produced. He was the number 1 tight end in the draft class, and he's done terrible things coming out. He's missed 14 games out of 64. I know it doesn't sound too crazy, but that's almost a full season in 4 years that he's missed. While he did play a full season last year, he had below average production, in my opinion. He had 63 catches on 110 targets for 650 yards and 1 touchdown. Like,
that catch rate is horrible.
That is not good production from a tight end.
He has a 60% catch rate. It's garbage. That's all I was going to say.
58 to be exact. That's horrible.
That's trash. And especially for a tight end who was expected to be elite was expected to kind of bring back that promising nightmare matchup, and all he's been is a nightmare. There's no mismatch there at all.
I will say you are forgetting that he did have a rushing touchdown as well with the receiving one. So don't sleep on the guy, all right?
Man.
Just kidding, guys.
Man.
You know who my bust is also? It's Evan Ingram. And you want to know the notes I wrote for him? Yawn. That's what I wrote. That's all I'm going to say about it. Mason, you want to talk about your bust?
It's Evan Ingram. No, I'm just kidding. But for real, stay away from Evan Ingram. Maybe he comes out and does something. Probably not, though. My bust, Kenny Galladay. Okay. I think he's going to be a wide receiver 3 at best. I don't like him. Do you know who else is still there? We still got Sterling Shepard. All right. And then we got one other important guy that I know Stone likes a lot. His name is Darius Slayton. Those guys, I think, are locked in the offense. I think better wide receivers on the team. But anyways, going back to Kenny G. In 2019, he had a 21% target share. No Giant came close to that last year. I don't know if that's Danny Dimes' fault, but that was one of Kenny G's most productive seasons, and odds are he doesn't go back to a 20% target share. Saquon Barkley was out as well last year. He's going to steal a decent amount of the target share as well, catch the ball. So now we're looking at Kadarius Toney, the rookie. We're looking at Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton. I just don't think that Kenny G is going to be as prominent. And to be honest, I'm not excited about him being there. He already has a hamstring camp. I think it could nag him all year. We know how horrible hamstring injuries are in training camp. But anyways, that's all I have to say.
Well, Paul's guarantee just so happens to be that same guy you're talking about right now.
You want to rethink your argument there, Paul? I just crushed it.
I don't, and I get the hamstring injury at the moment and the target share that you think is going to be down because he was on a Detroit Lions team with Marvin Jones at best as the number 1, TJ Hawkinson as a rookie coming out. You're right in that aspect that he had a lot of the targets coming his way. But when it comes down to it, he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2018 and 2019. I honestly think he had an outlier season with a nagging injury. It limited him only to 5 games, but in those 5 games, he still produced a catch rate of 17 yards per catch. He has a career yardage per catch of 16.8. So, I mean, he's still right there. He's still one of the best downfield, high-point wide receivers in the league, in my opinion. I think Danny Dimes, he'll look to throw it. He has those other guys out there. And like you said, maybe because of him being hurt last year and having that hip flexor that cost him the 2020 season, maybe they don't look at him as being that same type of elite receiver that we've seen in Detroit. And they start to double team Darius Slayton, or they start to double team.
I don't know if we can
help it. I can't help it. But
get out of that.
My dog's going crazy.
That's all you can do, buddy. That's all you can do. But, real quick, if you want to, you can calm him down real quick if you want. But really, you got it both from me and Paul. 2 different sides of the spectrum. I think it's 50-50. Kenny G could be good. He might not be. If you want to take the chance on him around round 5, maybe to the end of round 5, it might be worth the risk. If he slides into round 6, maybe 7, then I might think about taking him. But actually, I'm not going to think about taking him, but Paul might think about it.
Paul's a dog over here. You know, he's he knows his stuff, but he's also got a dog that's being really annoying right now. I'm sorry for the viewers out there. I'm sure Paul's not too happy about it either. As you can see, he's not here anymore with us. But I do want to talk about me and Mason. We share the same guarantee. I'll keep it brief on my end. I'll let Mason do a little bit of the explaining. I just want to say that, it's Saquon Barkley. And my argument is, if he is healthy, he is one of the best running backs in the NFL. I don't think you can argue that at all. He's just that talented.
You can't. Honestly, I think just people are down on him because in order to, when you draft Saquon, you got to draft him early. First, that being the first round. Maybe he's sliding to the second just because he might miss. But this guy, Saquon Barkley, is going to bounce back and show the fantasy community that he is worth a top 6 pick. I think that's worthy. In his previous 2 seasons, he finished as the running back 2 and the running back 10. That gives you a pretty good idea of his ceiling and when he's playing a full season. The offense has gotten better. That will also take some pressure off as well. I just think, say Quads Barkley is going to show us that he could end up with a running back 1 season this year. So let's just wait and see.
Before we move on to our NFC East, divisional winners, I was gonna bring up. I was gonna ask what Paul did with the dog, but it seems like he didn't do much.
Paul, do you want to recap this? It's all right. The dog's okay, man.
We'll recap real quick. We'll give our division winner picks here in a second, but I just wanted to let you guys in on a fun fact. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with my dog over there barking. Since 2005, there has not been a single repeat division winner in the NFC East. The last time the Giants won it was 2011 when they got to a Super Bowl and beat Tampa Bay. I'm thinking over here, Tom Brady. When they beat TB12 and the Patriots. And then Dallas, last time they won it was 3 years ago in 2018. Washington, they're the current defending champ right now. And yeah, Philadelphia, last time they got it was 2019. So just kind of think about that if you're into betting on division winners, or if you're into anything like that, to where you're trying to see who you want. My personal pick is the Dallas Cowboys this year. I think they're looking for a bounce back season. That's just how I'm kind of looking at it. And I also believe in the curse. I don't know if these two do, but we'll see here in a second with their picks.
I just so happen to not believe in the curse. The last team to win it was the Washington football team, and I believe they will repeat and break the curse since 2005. I think that defense could arguably be the number 1 defense in the NFL this year. They have so much talent top to bottom. And then their offense, they just did everything right in the offseason. You know, I said Curtis Samuel's my bust, but you can't argue the fact that that's such a great pickup for them to get them another good wide receiver on the team. And they got Fitzmagic. You know, he's going to mentor the GOAT, Taylor Heineke. But, I mean, they got Gibson, McKissick, Scary Terry still, Logan Thomas. I'm still huge on him. I just think top to bottom, that roster is built so well. I think they're going to win the division. And I'm going to give them 12 wins this season.
Oh. Okay. Dang. All right, cool.
I
like that. I like the Washington football team as well to win the division. Like Stone said, I don't really have much more to say, but that defense was already good. It got better, bringing back Landon. That offense was okay, but now it's good having a solid veteran like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He can come in and just bring this team to the playoffs, I believe, and possibly win a game or two. Being in the NFC, they're gonna lose to the Rams. No big deal. But yeah,
Rams going 17-0, confirmed here by Mason Reed Live. Everybody,
let's go!
All right, but I think that's just about gonna wrap things up here for the fantasy podcast today. Like we said before, go ahead to make sure to follow us on our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Fantasy Few. We are also on Spotify, and it is the same exact name as it is on YouTube. One last closing remark that I have is, don't worry, everybody. Paul's dog will be fine. He's an animal lover. He won't do anything to the dog.
Jesus.
Oh, no. And I was actually going to say, he's our guest speaker for tonight, my dog. Probably see him again, or hear him again in the near future in a podcast. So once you start listening to us, we're going to pump these out as much as we can. We're going to give you guys some good content. Yeah, just ready to go. And So is he apparently.
He's pumped up. Mason, any closing remarks at all?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for your input, Mason. All right.
Fantasy Few out, baby. Let's go.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. All right.